I wouldn't say we made it, but we made it through. We just had moose to make, and we made them do that. I would've said we made it.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Legion of Nerds. I'm Chuck.
And I'm Brandy.
Today, we're going to take a trip down Holiday Road to July 29th, 1983. National Lampoon's Vacation. That's right. It's definitely one of my staples growing up. Is actually the whole series. To be honest, I watched the second one first and then went back and watched this one. But that seems to happen a lot. You know, like you see this movie and then you're like, oh, there was one before it, so you go back and watch that one.
Of course.
Right. Directed by Harold Ramis.
Yes.
Which a lot of people know him as Egon Spangler. But behind the camera, he did a lot of great work. This was only like his second movie after Caddyshack.
And Caddyshack's fantastic.
Yes. I mean, at the time, people were like, man, they thought that Harold Ramis really didn't have what it takes, or he was still learning. And with this one, like they found out that he had learned a lot on Caddyshack, and he'd come a long way when it comes to this one, because this is really, to me, his breakout hit.
Yes, sir.
I love Caddyshack, don't get me wrong. It's a classic. It's a cult classic. And it's great. It's got Chevy Chase in it, just like this one does. Yes. Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo.
Yes.
Anthony Michael Hall. And this was the beginning of Anthony Michael Hall and John Hughes' relationship. It had Dana Barron, Imogene Coca.
Yes.
Yes. Randy Quaid and Christy Brinkley.
Of course, you cannot leave out
the girl in the Ferrari.
At all.
That's right. Of course, the screenplay was by John Hughes. It was actually based on a story that he had written for the National Lampoon magazine called Vacation 58. He took some of the things from his vacations as a kid, put them all together, and came up with this story, of course. And of course, it's supposed to be the Disney World and all that stuff, but of course they wasn't going to
copyright issues.
Yeah, they weren't going to allow him to use that in the movie. It had a budget of $15 million and brought back $61.4 million in the box office.
It made some money.
That's right, which made it a hit, which is why it got a sequel, of course. The music was by Ralph Burns, who
has done some stuff now.
One before Annie. All that jazz. I'm like Academy Award winning movies. Urban Cowboy, All Dogs Go to Heaven, and The Muppets Take Manhattan. That's right.
Give me some Muppets.
That's right. This movie has 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is fantastic. And it has a score of 55 out of 100 on Metacritic. About Clark Griswold taking his family on a cross-country trip to an amusement park called Wally World. And Clark Griswold is Chevy Chase, and everybody's by now should know who Chevy Chase is. He was one of the original cast members of Saturday Night Live. He was the original anchor for the Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. He won 2 Emmys and a Golden Globe just for Saturday Night Live. And of course, he had done Caddyshack and Modern Problems around this time and was actually growing in to more movies and becoming a star. This role was completely different than anything he had done before.
It was a family role.
No, not only that, was up until this point, he was Chevy Chase and fuck everybody else. And he was the smooth, like handsome.
Debonair.
That's right. And this one, he got to like bring out his inner nerd, his inner geek. And if you listen to interviews from that time, like he had a blast.
He did.
Being able to play this character like this. Because it just like he found a whole new side to himself doing this role. So it was, yes, fantastic. His wife, Ellen Griswold, played by Beverly D'Angelo.
The gorgeous goddess herself.
Yes, probably one of my favorite, or first childhood crushes, of course. Like, who wouldn't have a crush on Beverly? I mean, to this day, she's still beautiful. Of course, she had been in Every Which Way But Loose, Hair, and Coal Miner's Daughter at this point. Rusty Griswold, played by Anthony Michael Hall. Of course, again, this started his whole relationship with John Hughes, because right after this, he did 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Weird Science.
Love me some Weird Science.
Man, and of course, he's been on to do more than that. But just right after that, yes. Like, just a few years ago, he was in Halloween Kills. Dana Barron plays Audrey Griswold. She's not really had a huge breakout, but she's a working actress. She's been in many TV and film roles. Red Ferrari Girl.
Christy Brinkley.
Uptown Girl herself.
Gorgeous.
That's right.
Another gorgeous lady in this one.
Yes. Of course, in the regular version, we never find out who she is or anything. But if you know anything about this movie, there's an alternate ending where a whole bunch of shenanigans take place, and we'll talk about that later. But you find out that she's actually the owner of Wally World's daughter this whole time.
Wally.
Yeah, this whole time that's who she's been. And Randy Quaid is Cousin Eddie.
Oh.
Cousin Eddie. And everybody knows Cousin Eddie keeps coming back. And his best turnout was for Christmas Vacation. And we will get to that, y'all. We promise. And a lot of other actors showed up. Some of my favorite comedians, like John Candy and Mickey Jones, Eddie Bracken, Dole Murray, Eugene Levy, and James Keach. Eugene Levy is one of my, man, like, it don't matter what he's in. He's one of the best or funniest things on the screen, especially in this movie too. Well, we start out the movie with them going to the car lot to pick up the new family vehicle, of course, so they can hit the road in it and everything.
It was not the Sportster they're supposed to pick up.
Oh no, they were supposed to pick up the Sportster, but what they have is the Wagon Queen family truckster that Eugene Levy says, if you hate it now, wait till you drive it.
In metallic P.
Oh yes. Oh man. They end up crushing his car, which they made up right on the set, right there on the spot. They decided they'd crush his car, so there'd be no other way for him not to take the truckster, of course. And he gets back to the house, and they argue and fight for a minute. They load up and head to St. Louis. When they get to St. Louis, they get a little off the beaten path. But they're still trying, like, it ain't stopping Clark. Clark's gonna find the directions. And he gets told to go fuck your mother. By a pimp in St. Louis. They finally get out of there and end up at Dodge City, where they go into the bar and the little saloon.
Yes.
With the bartender, where he's mouthing off to the bartender and he pulls out the shotgun. But, you know, it's fake.
It's fake. It's just part of the bit, honey.
That's right. Move on to there, and they end up at Cousin Eddie's. And let me tell you what, this is the first stop where I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? All the way from girl stirring the Kool-Aid with her arm to old girl telling her cousin that her daddy says she French kisses the best.
Yeah, but daddy says I'm the best.
Oh my God. They sit down and eat, of course, and then they find out that Aunt Edna and the dog's going to be leaving with them and everything. So they load up and take off. They get to the tent place, and stop and spend the night or whatever. And the next day, Clark forgets to unhook the dog from the leash which he had attached to the car, and they left with the dog attached to the car. Usually in most movies, this is where I'm like, fuck you. You killed the dog. But luckily, he gets pulled over by a sheriff, by a cop, played by James Keach. And they have one of the best interactions ever. And of course, if you go back and watch the interviews about it and everything, both of them were talking about how they just could not handle it. They could not keep it together. All the whimpering and the breath, the breathing, it was all real. It happened right there on the set. Like, neither one of them could hold it together.
Chevy Chase is crying because he can't laugh.
That's right. They cannot hold it together for anything. And it's probably my favorite interaction in the whole movie is this cop. And the little guy, he probably kept up for like 100 feet. Yeah.
Poor little guy. Probably kept up with you for a mile or so.
That's when Clark gets them lost in the desert or whatever. They get off the road. And that's when they ramp the truckster.
At least 50 feet.
Yeah, and behind the scenes,
they were trying to push it as far as they could.
That's right. The film crew was trying to tell the stunt dude that he could not do it so far. Like, so he did it as best as. Oh yeah, and they launched that car, and it went further than anybody even like thought they could do it. That motherfucker takes off. Boosh. It's fucking great. And that's when Clark gives Rusty the speech, and they share a beer.
They share a beer.
Rusty downs it, but more behind the scenes knowledge, it was empty. Like the actual can was empty.
Of course.
And he takes off through the desert. And he starts slowly losing his mind and everything. And finally he comes upon like civilization. And he comes across this mechanic shop and everything. It just so happens the rest of his family's there. Like they got picked up by the mechanic or whatever. But he had walked all the way through to there.
Again, next time just take the road.
I didn't understand why he didn't walk the road. This motherfucker just took off through the desert. Like he was just gonna find something by hope. Blazing
a trail.
Right. And they talked to the mechanic, and they asked how much, and he's like, how much you got? And he's like, I don't have time to play, And he's like, I don't either. How much you got? And he was like, so what would your sheriff think? And he pulls out the badge. So he's a mechanic and the sheriff.
So he sets his business practices and enforces them.
That's right. So they got all of Clark's cash. From what I remember, I think it was $500.
$500 for 4 bald tires and a tow.
That's right. And then they get a little further down the road and figure out that Aunt Edna has died.
Poor Imogene Coca.
Oh yeah, she went through some stuff.
She was told they weren't going to be traveling.
Yeah, she had a big, huge fear of like travel because she had been in a car accident. So she had real fear of traveling, and like her nerves were shot through a lot of the filming, and she had a stroke at one point and had forgot that she had filmed the whole scene. Like Harold Ramis had sat down to talk to her about the scene, and she couldn't even remember the scene. She didn't even remember filming it. So they sent her to the hospital, and they did some checks on her and everything. But she came back like the next day.
I was like the strength and willpower of that woman, because she relearned all her lines that night with her husband.
Yes, and came back the next day and blew them all out the water. Yeah, she professional. Tell you what. So they wrap her up and put her on top of the car to take her all the rest of the way
to her son's house.
Phoenix.
Yes, sir.
Yes, in Phoenix. And when they get there, he's not there. So they just leave her outside. Oh my God! At this point, come on, Clark. They get him a place to stay for the night, and the family is wanting to go home. But by this time, Clark is obsessed. Like, and if you watch these movies, you know what I mean, because Chevy Chase plays
crazy
obsessed Clark Griswold to a T. Fight ensues, and he gets away from his family and ends up running into the girl in the red Ferrari and doing some skinny dipping.
And woo, is it cold?
Yes.
She says it's exhilarating.
Yes. And wakes up the entire motel, and his wife sees it, and they end up having a big talk about it and everything. And they hash all their differences and everything and decide to head on to Wally World the next day. And woohoo, they get to Wally World. Like, nobody else is there. No other traffic.
Not notice traffic not going in or out.
Right. They get up to the gate and everything, and of course there's the moose, and he pushes the button, and it's like, we're closed for 2 weeks. And that's Harold Ramis that does the voice. He actually has a voice cameo in the movie as the moose. And by this time he's really all pissed off. Gets a BB gun and holds John Candy hostage and makes him go on all the rides with him and his kids.
But he doesn't throw up this time.
That's right. That's right. But behind the scenes, here we go again. Behind the scenes, everybody was sick because they had to refilm all these rides. Yes, over and over and over. People were getting sick. People were having to call off. Dana Barron told a story about how she got off and had to go just eat motion sickness medicine. Yeah, it was a whole fiasco filming that last scene and everything. But yeah, SWAT team shows up because they really think it's some terrorists, and Mr. Wally shows up and actually saves them from going to jail, because Clark gives them this sad boo-hoo story and the whole family and all that. Do you remember your first time watching National Lampoon's Vacation?
I really don't.
Right.
I want to say I was maybe 8 or 9
right.
when I remember watching it.
Right.
I know I watched it before that, but no specific.
Right. I don't either. I don't remember exactly when I watched this one. I don't remember exactly when I watched European Vacation, but I think it was on TV.
I know it was on TV.
TBS or something like that. TNT or something like that.
My aunt and uncle had satellite, and I would sit over with Grandpa and watch TV.
I got you. Yeah. But that got me interested in it. Was European Vacation was probably. And then I went back and watched it. And of course have since fell in love with the whole series. Don't give me the made-for-TV Cousin Eddie one. But I'll take all the theatrical released ones.
Give me Vegas Vacation.
I do love Vegas Vacation. Christmas Vacation. All of them. All of them, to be honest. You have a score for this one?
It would be B plus.
B plus?
B plus.
B plus. And that's about my score for this one. I'd say about a B. B plus. Yes. The comedy's great. Chevy Chase plays it perfect as always. It don't matter the comedy. It just seems like he can go with it, no matter if it's dry or not. No matter what kind. If it's physical or not. It don't matter. Chevy Chase just rolls with it. You have a favorite part?
I do. It is when him and Red Ferrari girl are skinny dipping, and they wake up the whole hotel, and he's having the conversation with Rusty about how, oh no, That wasn't some female I was skinny dipping with. That's a waitress, and she was taking my order. I ordered fish for all of us. Oh, so she took your order? Yeah. You think Mom's gonna buy that?
That's right.
Good talk, son. Good talk.
That's right. That's great. It is great. That is a great part. My favorite part is when the cop pulls him over for killing the dog, for taking off with the dog. That whole interaction between him and that dog, that cop. Oh man, I die every time. I have rewound that scene and rewatched it over so many times. Like the whole movie is just a series of unfortunate events, misadventures. Like you could take this and it'd be ripe for a TV show. Like this episode they get into this, and this episode they get into this. So it's hard to really pick a favorite one because they're all fucking ridiculous.
Yes.
But yes.
And who hasn't taken even just a short road trip with their family and something gone wrong, or
yes,
tensions run high because a certain family member that doesn't like everybody in the car is in the car.
That's right. Well, you have any final thoughts?
This is definitely one of those that should be watched at least once a year.
Oh yes. If you have teenagers and above, you should sit down as family and watch this together. Like it really is. And I know I keep harping on this about these movies we've been watching lately, but it's a movie about family values and family love and the shenanigans we get into and what we would do for each other.
I'll say the links you would go to for the people you love.
That's right. That's right. All right. You ready to get out of here?
I am.
All right. I've been Chuck.
I've been Brandy.
We've been the Legion of Nerds. Y'all don't have too much fun.
Poor little guy. Probably kept up with you for a mile or so.